Welcome back to Partnerships Unraveled, the podcast where we unravel the mysteries about channel and partnerships on a weekly basis. My name's Alex Whitford and I'm the VP of Revenue here at Channext. And today I'm excited to welcome our special guest, Wayne. Wayne, how you doing?
Hi, Alex. I'm fine. Good to see you today.
Yeah, and Wayne, look, for the uninitiated, it'd be great if you could give us a bit of an introduction. Who are you? Where have you come from? And why the hell should we be interviewing you today around the channel?
Yeah, good question. Start with a good one. So my current role, I am the distribution lead at Neat. So I head up all of distribution for Neat internationally. Neat, if you didn't know, is a manufacturer of video conferencing devices. But we're a fairly new business. We're in our fourth year. My background, though, and I know I don't look it, so you don't have to say anything, Alex. It's fine. My background is 28 years in video conferencing. Started at Tamberg many, many years ago, and then moved into distribution for many years. Built a couple of distributors and sold those, and then found my way back into manufacturing. And before Neat, I looked after Logitech in the UK. So there's a very quick potted history of what I've done.
And so Neat has gone through tremendous growth. I think 4 years is slightly understating it. Could you give me a little bit of background around how Neat has transformed and sort of market share and growth rates that Neat have gone through in the last 4 years?
Yeah, so we launched at Zoomtopia in 2019, and it's quite an interesting story. Our founder was approached by the founder of Zoom to develop product to give and enrich and give people a better collaboration experience and tie that great platform into great quality hardware. So our founder, Simon Tigra, decided, we can do that and we can be disruptive. So he went away and made some product. We launched, as I say, at Zoomtopia in 2019 with 2 products. And that went down really, really well. And the difference of the products and the disruptive nature was trying to create a strong connection between the hardware and AI in the system. And then come with that kind of disruptive play around software service around and the kind of features that we've created. That went really well, although it was a strange time to do it, obviously, because no one could foresee that we would then go into a global pandemic. And that's always an interesting time, starting a new business, developing specifically room-based video conferencing systems when realistically no one was in a meeting room. But obviously we navigated that period. And I think really what stemmed the growth initially was our disruptive approach, that difference, that quality and that disruptive nature of our software. So here we are 4 years later where we've gone through some instrumental changes, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in the next half an hour. But that's where we started.
I think the piece from my side, obviously, I used to work at Zoom. I used to run Zoom's distribution strategy. I suppose you're my counterpart at Neat, and certainly when I was at Zoom, Neat traditionally had a very sort of top of the pyramid strategy when it came to sort of partners. Right, they were focused on a few partners who were doing huge enterprise deals. But as me and you both know, that's hard to do consistently, right? That revenue is very lumpy. It's amazing. You close an enormous deal, hit your entire quarter with one deal, one partner, but then where's the next deal coming from? To build a sustainable business unit, you're looking at how do we develop a run rate strategy? And that's something, Wayne, that you've been pioneering at Neat. Can you talk me through how do you build a run rate strategy? How does distribution play a role in doing that?
So just checking, we've got half an hour, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
No, so I think the whole business realised that when we came out of that pandemic, we saw obviously a growth cycle develop, and really the model we had selling directly online was a great model in its inception, but actually it was never going to create the scale and the sustainable growth and the controlled growth that you really needed. And also, dare I say, that the market was offering. Yeah, because I often think depending on the strategy or the strategy you employ is very dependent on where you are in the life cycle of what you're offering as a product or a service, or, you know, how mature that market is. So video conferencing is one of those strange markets where every year somebody says this year is the year of video conferencing. And, you know, people like me have been saying that for 28 years. But, you know, it really, really did take something like a global pandemic, unfortunately, to make people look at the way they were working. And so for us, it became very clear selling in that direct fashion, then kind of starting to work with a few partners because they came to us. Almost we had to pull on our big boy pants and say, hey, how do we scale this business? And you've already alluded to it, that the only way you can scale in that accelerated fashion is by adopting a distribution-led model. But it's an interesting almost dichotomy about what you do as a strategy when you start. Do you start with a scaled down market strategy that drives a run rate? Or do you go for that kind of enterprise, top performing partner led kind of model? Well, I actually think it's both. And the reason for that is they're two sides of the same coin. So to drive distribution, anyone who thinks that signing distribution is the answer to all prayers, yeah, as a distribution guy is wrong. Because you've got to educate them, you've got to mobilize them, you've got to incentivize, the commercial offering's got to be correct, the product has to be correct, and you're trying to create almost a perfect storm that you can go to market with. But to do that and to get those distributors to believe that story, you have to have the odd big hitter in market to go, I'm a big partner, I believe in this brand. But you also don't want to lose that connection with those big partners. So right from its inception at Neat, when I was devising the distribution strategy, it was all about driving down market and driving net new partner adoption, because that's what we needed, obviously, as a new brand with, to be honest, very little brand credibility. Yeah, not really known in the market. But to keep to keep being able to pay the bills while you're building that down market strategy, you need that kind of key end user development and large partner development. So the way I kind of fundamentally look at it, I suppose, is, you know, the long down market strategy gives us that diversification, it gives us a stable revenue, you know, and a kind of expanded market coverage that we needed. But ultimately, the partner level, and we still obviously have that today, strategic partners, that just gives you that focus that you need, and it gives you the control and that real sense of partnership of working with a partner to bring them on board with you. So for me, it's not a case of either or, it's a case of what percentage are you going to go one side and what percentage are you going to do the other side, and making sure you get the fine balance that suits your market that you're about to enter into.
Yeah, I think from my side, when I've built distribution strategy, to me, distribution is the ultimate scale, but with scale comes dilution of control, right? And so what you're trying to build is a diluted version of the value that you provide for the very top partners. And so if you've got it right with a few top partners and you really understand that mechanism deeply, then you can sort of repurpose and cookie cutter that process and accept that, yes, there is some dilution of process because you're not touching it directly. But the flip side of that is what scale is, right? At some point, you're dissolving yourself of the responsibility of controlling every minor part and accepting that distribution is going to take some of that on and offer that real scale, which to me, when I put my CFO hat on my strategic vision, it's like, how do we monetize this more effectively? And how do we have consistent revenue that your top partner that's trying to close Nestle isn't going to be able to provide? The upside is when they close Nestle, hey, we're all really happy, right? Because that's an enormous deal. And so the balancing act of building a channel is, how do you get the best of both worlds? And you've got to build a divested strategy to achieve both those things.
You do. I agree with you. I think one of the key things as well is really understanding the type of partner that you're working with, but also how you facilitate those partners and their go-to-market. And what I mean by that is, I'm a big believer is we're only as good and as successful as our partners, be that those focus partners or that long tail of partners. Yeah. And every partner that transacts with Neat, yeah, is valued. Yeah. And and I'm very mindful, and the culture we have in Neat is one of value, and always really banging that drum about be humble, be appreciative of any partner that wants to talk to you about your product. And the thing that we have to do as a manufacturer is keep the integrity of our commercial offer. Yeah. Be transparent about what we do. And I'm talking specifically about street price and list price, because a big thing for me about protecting that protects the margin of your channel and your partners and distribution. The moment, for example, you rush that accelerated process to online, for example, and start selling via e-tailers too quickly, they have their place in the market, absolutely, yeah, and they can give you a credible scale. But that's in a particular type of market. Now, in our market, in where we are in our life cycle, I have to make sure that we're protecting that list price for our partners. Now, often when you go online, there's a degradation and erosion of that list price, and you find there's a street price, and then there's a delta between that list price and street price. And that's one of the key things that I think a lot of people miss when they go out. They see the scale opportunity, but you're kind of selling your soul almost, depending on where you are in your life cycle, because what it does is it creates that delta. And that fundamentally is eroding the margin of your commercial offer and reducing the value that your potential partners or the next new big partner is going to see in your brand. So we focused very heavily on protecting that marketplace for us. One of the key things we did when we started was making sure our deal registration program, yeah, was very heavily weighted. And so we offer 10% in our deal registration program. And that creates a real advantage to the partner that brings that opportunity for that, because we value that partner, and it also creates a transparency. So I think, in a kind of roundabout way, that was one of the key things that I looked at first, was how do you protect the commercial integrity? If you crack that, you've got a very good story then to take to both those types. Your big partner you want to kind of really work with and grow, those behemoths that, we all know who they are, that add value. And yes, but all that long tail, the smaller businesses or the guys that are adding value, but they've just not got the size of revenue, we need to protect them as well, because they switch off very, very quickly. So protecting that long tail and making sure the pace of growth in your long tail is as big in your performing top partners, for me, is a critical success factor in the channel.
Yeah, and I think you're talking a lot about channel integrity. When we start to hit that true scale, and you're not speaking to partners on a daily basis or a weekly basis, and if you're not speaking to them at all directly because you're leveraging distribution to have those conversations, a good reputation will take you very far, but a bad reputation will take you nowhere. And I think this is why having that critical protection in there is, because you'll just burn your entire strategy, right? Once you get labeled, it's almost game over at that point.
Truer word never spoken. Really, really, honestly.
You can see we've both spent a lot of time trying to protect brand image.
That's absolutely. So one of the things that I actually did at Logitech, and I brought that concept into Neat because it works so well. It's calls to exactly what you've just said. Now, I'm sure other people do it. I call it channel assist and dub it channel assist. But the whole idea around channel assist is essentially you have a range of high touch salespeople, that are out there talking to end users as a vendor. Many vendors have that model where they have those high touch. But our high touch salespeople are also all responsible for the sales within certain key partners. So what that enables us to do is spread our love, if you want for a better word, across 70 partners. And those 70 partners engage with us at multi-level. So we're always looking at those contact points because we know contact points create these compelling events. So if we've got our sales guys focused on end users, yeah, but also then focus on servicing our channel partners when those channel partners bring us opportunities, or we have out there in the market, we hear that, I don't know, Barclays is looking at certain channel partner, we can then go to that channel partner and engage. I think that's really important, that that's not a bottleneck. And I think that's really important from a channel service proposition. We're agile. So, deal registrations, reacting to people's requests for quotes, whatever it may be, a question about a product, everything we've done is creating a mechanism that's agile and responds quickly, because your partner shouldn't have to wait 24 hours for an answer. And so that's worked exceptionally well in creating that trust in the market, but also removing that bottleneck. So maintaining our agility, and we've had a good response to that kind of strategy from the channel.
That's excellent. You're talking a lot about sort of channel architecture and sort of commercial design there to help Neat win from a sales perspective. I want to pivot slightly and understand from your perspective, how does marketing contribute to driving a long tail strategy?
So our marketing director, we've got two in international. We've got one for EMEA and one for APAC, Clara and Christina. I can almost feel them on each shoulder now. Going, so
it's the most
marketing,
important.
Absolutely. And for me, marketing is a pivotal in that long tail, because it keeps the communication. It's a vehicle for increasing awareness within that partner community. Very different messages. There's different mediums that you know too well, whether it be digital, integrated, via events, old school kind of, more direct mail, even personal invites, personalization. But I think for us, it's about, marketing allows us to raise and increase awareness. It allows us to educate those customers and keep engaging those customers. When I talk about customers, that's very much a case of, yes, end user, but very much also our partner community. Okay. We've got the promoting products and things like this that we need to do, and that evangelization. And it's how you do that. So one of the things, that we started last year that's been really successful so far and still in its inception is the emergence of our own portal that we developed. And we're using that to drive customer or partner engagement. So be it whether or not they're registering their deals, they can go and then see what deals are registered, where are they in the scope, how did they get resources, how did they get support for those deals and information, how did they maximize the opportunity with Neat. And that all stems from marketing. I mean, obviously we've just come off the back of ISC. And I'll be honest, with ISC, our position, we joked about where we were at ISC because we weren't in Hall 2, where all our brethren in competition were. We were in kind of the far reaches of almost Madrid, not Barcelona. In fact, we were in Hall 4. But the one thing that really, really pleased me was the fact that marketing did such a good job of making people aware and gamifying coming to our stand, that the people that did come to our stand, we knew they'd searched us out because that was the only option. But we were overrun. It was just an exceptional experience, the best yet at ISC. So yes, we booked for next year. Funnily enough, we haven't booked Hall 4, we have booked Hall 2. But it was just that fact that all that stems from an engaged marketing strategy that complements what we're doing as a channel strategy and really calling out. There's no good if, you've got a channel strategy we have, and marketing then wants to do everything via e-tailers. It's not going to work. So marketing has a big role to play.
Yeah, certainly my belief, right? When you're running a direct organization, right, you can have an outbound function and an inbound function. And when you start to hit true scale, you'll see that your inbound function wildly overtakes your outbound function because it scales far better, right? It's why I'm such a strong proponent for the channel, because it scales much better once you hit that critical mass. The thing that makes me really interested about how marketing and channel should coexist is it's scale over scale. And one of the things that I really see happening in the market now is marketing being used to reinforce long tail partners, opportunity creation, right? I think that's the lifeblood of how you keep a channel going at a very, very high velocity is, what keeps partners interested? New deals constantly coming. And yes, this is coming from the guy who was at Zoom through a global pandemic. So you do get to eat for free at some point. And I'm not suggesting we start a pandemic for us to keep scaling revenue. But marketing plays an enormous role in driving that deal velocity and deal creation through partners. What's your view in terms of how marketing can help partners source and find and close new opportunities consistently?
Well, I think it's interesting because if you go back, my background in terms of, we were a very successful distributor in Margo in the UK that we obviously eventually was sold. But I used to talk often then, just like you did then, about opportunities being, leads, if you like, being the currency that we have to deal in. Because even as a distributor going out to the partner community, to win over that partner community, you have to an engaged marketing plan that creates opportunities that you can take, because that's the currency that your customers, partners understand. Now, I think often vendors kind of do this. I've signed a disty, off you go. Well, no, I'm afraid not, Mr. Vendor. We have a vital role to play in making sure, and I think, from what we've done in the last few years, the last 3 years, is that's one of the things that set us aside as well, is our engagement at that distribution level and partner level, but the fact that we're bringing opportunities all the time. And if we're not bringing opportunities and we hear about the opportunities, we then work with those partners to close, and distributor to close that opportunity. Because together we increase the value and we decrease the sales cycle in terms of time. So we're much more efficient when we're working together to do that. And how we get those opportunities is through a number of vehicles. Marketing, it's a classic 7-touch rule within marketing, and making sure we have a proper nurture program. So, for example, in our sales guys will have named end user accounts that are classified into 3 buckets. And we have separate nurture campaigns for each bucket. Because they need different messages. So a bucket one might be, bucket one would be live opportunities today that you're working with. Okay, well, are we maximizing that opportunity? That 2-system deal, can that be a 4-system deal? Have they got wraparound services? That kind of stuff. The second bucket is where they've been spending customers in the past and bought neat, but they currently haven't got anything live. Well, why is that? Do they need help with adoption services? Are they utilizing the hardware to its best ability? What's the platforms they're providing? Because the Microsoft world and the Zoom world and the other guys all have a part to play in that. And then the third bucket is kind of net new stuff that needs the proper 7-touch nurture, building brand credibility in there, making sure that our message are articulated correctly as far as geographical coverage, market expansion, disruptive. Do they understand, what our messaging is really? So I think, that's how we go to market, and we push all that through. As I say, it starts at the top of the apex with distribution, and that's fed out into the partner community. And so over the last, internationally, I always mention internationally as well, obviously, because our USA business is ran as its own, and then we look after international. But if I look at the number of partners in the last 2 years, we've gone from almost zero to just over 2,000 across what was 3-4 countries to now 76 countries. So that scale can only be delivered if you're really engaged with your distribution partners and focusing them in the right areas of that down market, adding partners, adopting partners, and then also picking those partners up and bringing them on. Those that are accelerating, that's where your top performing partner strategy comes into play.
The piece for me, and I've seen this happen time and time again with different brands. Your partner program is sort of multifaceted, right? You're going to have your sales strategy, your program design, your architecture, whatever policies you have around payments, and all of it. It's just multifaceted strategy. And some of those bits will work really well, and some of those will be okay. It's always a place, where are you going to bet your chips, right? And I've seen programs with amazing enablement strategies, amazing escalation protocols. The opportunities just aren't there, right? And partners churn. And I've also seen the reverse, where programs have been, let's say, not well designed. The enablement strategy is not as good as it should be, but there's opportunities coming out of the partner's ears. I know which program works best, right? And it's the one where the partners go, okay, they're a bit of a pain in the ass to deal with. However, the demand is high. And when I need something, they are there. And so I consistently think that programs bet where it's easy to solve for. Like an enablement program is fairly binary, right? We upload a LMS platform into our partner portal. They can do certification. It is what it is. And it's obviously valuable and it works. But it's directly within our control. The bit that's more complicated is, how do you consistently generate opportunities? And to the scale that you've just mentioned, how do you consistently generate opportunities for 2,000 new partners in 70 new countries? Right, that's a challenge. It's a challenge that I imagine your colleagues have spent a lot of time spending a lot of time on it. And I think where it gets really interesting in this market is the times are changing, right? I think COVID's been instrumental in changing how we do business. And I know from my side, I see a lot less events. I think more and more are going digital. I think there's great data out there. I think the stat that flies around constantly is 54% of B2B buying decisions start on LinkedIn, right? And for me, if you understand that, the brands that are winning are the ones that are going, so where do we go where the customer is at true scale? And if you get those two pieces working together, that's how you light the fire and keep 2,000 new partners in 70 countries excited, and maybe that becomes 4,000 partners.
I think, it's kind of the magic recipe, really, because the thing is as well, when you're dealing across such a large geographical area, you have distinct cultural differences that you have to be very, very aware of. And in certain cultural differences, actually, the webinar has switched people off. In certain areas, people crave coming together to an event. So it's funny, in Southeast Asia, we do an awful lot of physical events coming together. And that allows us to touch people and say, hey, here, we're visible, we're in, we're here. But we can only do that with that partner, or dare I say, with that distribution support. So for us, it's about understanding the market, understanding how to build scale there, and also what the potential return is, because there's no point investing that time, energy, and money, dare I say, into a market where you've got 3 great partners selling, but actually the market itself probably only has 5 or 6 great partners in there. So you can spend an awful lot of time trying to develop, where actually you probably don't need to develop a partner strategy. You need to develop an end user engagement strategy through your partner community. So I think for us, it's been a learning curve of understanding, because again, all these 70 countries, 70 plus countries, are in slightly different stages of their growth, for want of a better word. Yeah. So the UK for us, wearing my other hat that I wear, looking after the UK for Neat, that's a mature market, or getting to a mature market space. Okay. and we have quite a large team now in the UK. Whereas if I look at some of our new areas, India, for example, India is a really interesting region. A country with many different regions. And we've invested in a number of people there. But every region has its own slightly different culture and kind of market. So we have some that are very finance driven, some that are very manufacturing driven. And partners have developed over the years in that space. Okay, so how do we create something that we get to those partners quickly? Yeah, and how do we recognize who those partners are? And that's where realistically now, that's where the kind of marketing programs we've done through partner adoption and engaging with them and catch all on our portals and so on, which is really quite embryonic, but trying to get a better digital interface into those and being easy to do business with and being able to scale from a project ourselves further, if you like, into the market space. That's the ultimate challenge. But I think, through the portal, through our partner community we have today, or the distribution, community we have today, we are starting to get over that hill in those areas. And I think the key thing is, as well as I've already said, is a lot of vendors, I think, over rotate and maybe go into the partner and they forget about, we've already said it, about the currency. So for us, yes, very distribution led, working with all sorts of partners and scaling and growing, but we have to keep that marketing machine going into the end user space, because that's where the currency is. And the great thing is about our technology, which is a great stat I use all the time, is we know when a customer buys a Neat device, within 3 months, they've bought 3 more. So we're at that part of the moment where we can drop seeding units, POCs, whatever it may be, into those customers. And we can almost, not guarantee clearly, but we're very, very sure that within a certain time period, we're going to see extended sales, a land and expand kind of strategy.
That's excellent, and you've spoken about chasing where the real value is, and I think we're very aligned in terms of marketing plays the critical role in supporting distribution activities by ensuring that we generate enough end user demand. One of the more traditional ways that that brands use marketing is via MDF, and in a recent study published by JSG, 47% of vendors reported major dissatisfaction with how their top technology service distributors used MDF. I've personally seen MDF used wonderfully and woefully and about everything in between. Now, Wayne, how do you manage to get the most out of MDF via distributors?
So here we go. Shock, horror. We don't do MDF.
There we go. Problem solved. See you guys later.
No, but of course we have money for marketing. No, we made a conscious decision from experience that accruing a percentage in terms of MDF in that type of MDF often leaves distributors with surplus budgets that they rush to then spend, and vendors are busy, disties are busy and rushing, and very often they've literally taken notes or dollars or yen or whatever currency you want, euro, and thrown it down the drain because they're rushing to just do some marketing because it's some marketing. So we made a decision very, very early on through distribution that we would do an ad hoc proposal-based approach. So we sit with our distributors at the beginning of the year, have a 6-month kind of life cycle forecast, which they can amend at the end of the quarter. And they put their proposals in that they want and that we want, and we come up with a figure together. Okay? And that's all based on what that ROI of that figure would be. So, we take one of our distributors, Midwich, for example, who we work closely with, and they would come to us with a proposal based on the marketing they want to do in the UK or France, or let's take the Benelux, for example. So they would come to us and we would assess together the ROI of doing that and what that entails and the kind of investment. And what we found is that drives much more engaged and much better return on the money, i.e. the individual dollar we invest into that exercise, because we planned it. We're not just looking at what the accrual is. They know what they're getting, and every activity is planned. It also enables us then to actually rinse and repeat that if that's worked well. So particularly when you're starting out again new as a new brand, a new vendor, I implore everyone to take an ad hoc proposal base, because it allows you to control the marketing dollars that you spend, rather than 20% of that MDF that you give to a disty being wasted. And so that's what we've certainly found at the moment. But it enables you, I think, in that way, to set really clear expectations, which is the key thing, because we want those marketing dollars to give us a return.
100%, right? I think one of the real problems when you don't track attribution properly is you can't punish bad behavior and reward good behavior, right? Which is what you actually want to do, is find the best marketing strategy possible that creates the most revenue, and then put every single dollar that you can afford behind that strategy, right? Whereas when you're just sort of blindly spreading it, as opposed to going, hang on, this tactic is working, this tactic isn't, how do we do more of this and less of that, so that we can actually incentivize what I think we both agree on, which is opportunity creation, and closure is the name of the game, right? That's why we're here. And driving behavior towards that is ultimately what's gonna get the return.
Yeah, no, right, Alex. I mean, you take a simple example of a nondescript government department places $1 million order on a partner, and they take that because they've gone for neat. Yeah, that all of a sudden, if you do a 2-3%, that partner's got 20-30 grand to then go and spend on an MDF accrual, and their actual number of transactions in the quarters too. They just happen to have landed that big deal. Is that the right partner to spend that 20-30K on? And that's really why the old rules around MDF and what you get for MDF are, So what a lot of the investment accrual we do is with distribution, because I said right at the beginning, well, okay, if you're not doing MDF, how do you make sure that long tail's okay? Because they're not going to come to you with massive marketing programs. But what we make sure is we call to task the distributor to make sure the distributor is targeting that long tail through their marketing programs. And that might be, takeover days that we do within our distribution. So only yesterday we had a big takeover day in the Middle East. And these days are where we go in and we take over completely. Purple rain everywhere, as we say. So for us, it's very much about side-to-side engagement and driving that. That everything we do has to have a return on it or proof of performance. And that's not us being difficult in any way. It's making sure that we're building both our relationships with Disty and Partner for Success. Because I said at the beginning, if they're successful, then we're successful.
Awesome, Wayne. Look, that's been incredibly helpful. Today we've discussed how do we build a run rate strategy and what role does distribution play in driving a consistent strategy, the function of marketing to support distribution and creating opportunities, and how MDF probably in its old format isn't the way to continually drive success, and we should be rewarding the right behavior, not the wrong behavior. Wayne, before I let you go, we like to ask our guests to recommend the next guest that we should have on the podcast. Who did you have in mind?
Oh, dear me. Oh, on the spot. So I'm not spoken to, who should we say? Actually, there is one guy. I will speak to him. So if he listens to this podcast before I've spoken to him, I apologise. But I think one of the guys that I work quite closely with is Andy Evans, who is the Vice President at Tech Data Maverick. He looks after, obviously, the whole of their EMEA business unit and Maverick. He's been in the channel a long time. He obviously works with lots and lots of partners and lots and lots of vendors. So I'm sure he'd have an interesting take on some of the questions you've asked today. I'm sure he'll have an opinion on.
Excellent. Well, as two ex-distribution guys, it's always good to speak to another distribution guy and get their view on how we build the next channel. Nice one, Wayne. Really appreciate your time, and thanks very much. And we'll speak to our guests next time.
Thanks a lot, Alex.